All right, we're here today with the Funhouse from Funston Street. Molly, Amy, Valerie, and Sierra. It's good to have you guys here today. And we're here to talk about how to love one another well when we're supposed to be keeping our social distance. So how to love one another well during this crisis. And I'm really happy to have you guys here because I think you've been an encouragement to me in the way that you've been doing that. And I trust it'll be an encouragement to the church as we get to talk about how you've been doing that, how you think about that, why you're doing that. And hopefully it will spur us on all towards love and good deeds. So let me just start with a couple of questions. First, how can we be loving the body when we're not physically together? Valerie?
Yeah, well, we can be really thankful for prayer, though undoubtedly it's harder for all of us to be in communication with one another because we are physically scattered. The Lord is still with us. He's still here as he always was. He's still inclining his ear, listening. He's still working and attending to us in his care for us. So really one of the best things we can continue to be doing for one another is staying faithful and consistent in our prayers and supplication.
Yeah.
And I think it may not be uncommon for us to forget, one, just how powerful prayer is. James 5 says the prayer of the righteous person is powerful as it is working. And two, going along with the end of that verse, how effective prayer is. If God has chosen prayer as the means by which we are communicating with him, God has ordained this, then it works. It's effective. Amen. Praise God. And three, maybe we can be forgetting that prayer and offering up supplication is a command found all throughout the Bible. So it's not just something that we should be doing and is great to be doing, but something that we ought to be doing. So practically speaking, we can be loving one another well by faithfully praying through the directory and asking each other how we can be praying for them specifically. And then on the other end of that, telling people when we have been praying for them to encourage them. I know whenever I get just like a short, simple message saying, hey, hope you're doing well, prayed for you today, it blesses me so much. So hopefully recipients of messages like these will be encouraged and then spurred on to do the same thing for others and start kind of a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And then also we can be praying, asking God to provide us with opportunities to serve others in more tangible ways, though that may seem really hard or even impossible in the moment. It's not. I've been really encouraged witnessing how God has answered these prayers of mine really clearly and also really quickly. For example, I shared with the roommates a while ago and also my community group, asking them to join me in praying that I would have these types of opportunities and that I would have wisdom in how to best go about them. And it was that very week and onward that opportunities just started coming in, and unique ones too. So I was really blessed to witness that, and I would encourage others to pray for the same things.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I love about that. One, we always talk about in our membership classes that while time and space might keep us apart, we always say that without thinking about such a time as this, we can always do one another spiritual good through prayer. And another thing you said is just, this is like one of the best things we can do for one another. So I know when we have struggles or like something's going on in our lives or somebody's facing trouble, we always think, what can we do for that person? And we say, yeah, prayer. But like we want something else, sort of, and we tend to put prayer in the category of like, this is the least thing we can do. I can at least pray, but really it's the most we can do. And so even as we come out of this time, this is something that we can use this crisis for to help us grow us in what we ought to be doing all the time and caring for one another, and even Lord willing, as the church grows, there's other people that will kind of keep us from knowing the whole body the same kind of way, but we can always pray this way through the directory. And I think that I love what you said about just texting people or whatever, letting them know specifically you're praying for them or asking for prayer. The directory is such a good springboard for that, because you're praying through and you're just wondering, how are they doing? And then you can just like quickly send them a text, let them know you prayed for them this morning or whatever else. And yeah, that's really helpful. What is the work involved in loving the body tangibly look like then in terms of we've got a way to spiritually love the body? What about just tangibly? What can this look like?
So we took this question very literally, and we have some very practical answers or ways to do this. I noticed for the beginning of our quarantine, we all really focused on getting our minds correct and praying for ourselves and our spiritual selves best. And then we started to branch out to each other and help and be in community with each other. And then as we had more time and more flexibility, we worked more with Grace Harbor in the church, and then more into the community and people around us. And I thought that was a really cool picture of how we nurtured our spirit and then got bigger as we had more time and availability. First of all, we also wanted to mention this is something that we are given the unique opportunity to be able to do because we're all single, we have some extra time now, we're able to give more of our time and resources than most people. But if it's all you can do to scrape by during this time and you have to work from home and have lots of children or even little things like that, we don't want you to feel pressure in having to do anything extra. In fact, we want to actually help you. We have these extra time resources, so we'd love to do that. Please reach out to us. We'd love that. We just wanted to release any need to do these things. These are just ways that we've felt really blessed by, because there's that blessing of giving, but also the blessing of receiving. Some specific ways are sending things in the mail, gifts, making food. We've been given lots of great, yummy food items that barely last the rest of the day. So that's been a huge blessing to us, and we love that. Celebrating each other's achievements has been really big for us. We love tacos. We found that we like celebrating over meals, and people who have celebrated with us, it's just meant a lot to us, and it's been really great. Some other ways would be virtual game nights, socially distant walks, propagating plants. We've been doing plants, and we thought it'd be really fun to give some things to our people. Just mostly being creative with this, and we have some really talented, loving people in our church that have done this really well. And from someone who's newer to this area and this church, it's been absolutely amazing to see the power of Grace Harbor and being able to share that with some of my coworkers and just talking about the community that's here and being able to step into that so seamlessly. Thank you.
Yeah, so on that, I think, again, another thing that we normally say in our membership classes is that one of the reasons that we want to love one another is because Jesus said it's by our love for one another that the world will know that we're his disciples. So it's by loving one another during this time, we are kind of testifying to the truth of the gospel, to the love of Christ himself among our neighbors, also our coworkers. But another thing at the membership classes we say is that we want to encourage people who call themselves Christians to see their need for community, that who might not have a church community that they're a part of, been trying to follow Jesus on their own. And you've been able to see this tangibly at work. So tell us how that's happened.
So for those who don't know, I work at Starbucks right now, which is it's actually been a lot of fun. I get to bring home lots of fun treats. But one thing I get to talk to my coworkers about is Jesus and God and how we've been able to work through this time. And one of my coworkers, his name is Ian. He's amazing. He became a Christian 2 years ago through one of his patients at the hospital. He works 2 jobs to take care of his family. He works 80 hours a week, and he's so faithful. But because of all the time he spends working, he hasn't been able to have a church community. And I think especially in times like these, he sees, he definitely knows the benefit to that. He recently had a baby yesterday, had their second child, he and his wife. And just some of the practical ways that we can encourage him would be possibly doing a diaper drive or something. I have a few ideas, but he's amazing, and he wants to come join Grace Harbor, but everything's shut down right now.
And some of that's been like his desire there has been, I think, because you've been talking about the community that you have at the church, and then people come in and they they talk to you, they see you, and
Yeah, so he
it's just
actually
obvious.
met Kevin. So Ian and I were talking about this amazing community here, and he said that I'm the first Christian he's ever met and become friends with, which is huge. And then 10 minutes later, Kevin walks in, and he meets Kevin. And then the Longs just came through last week, and so we got to meet all them. So he's already going to be part of us, I can tell.
Okay, so that's being at work in that kind of setting. That's a great place to kind of talk about community, live it, like testify that. That's more natural. Some of the things that we've been talking about are a little less natural. You guys have had to put some work into it to love people in this way. Why do you think it's important to put in this work and meet these challenges right now during this time specifically?
Yeah, so we love because he first loved us, and in a world that there's so much we can't control, we can certainly control our reaction and how we choose to do spiritual good to one another and glorify God. So the fact that we encourage, that we support, that we love in a myriad of ways really just points back to, like you said, it's a witness to the watching world. And right now, people are looking for hope. They're looking for, what is solid? What can I really sink my teeth in? And this just really points to the fact that we're not in control of our lives. It's but a vapor, and our hope is eternally secure in our Savior. And it really just, it just spurs us on to love. It's this ripple effect, really. And I think it's fun to think about all the ways you can love somebody, right? There's words of affirmation, there's acts of service, there's physical touch, there's gifts, and then there's quality time. And I think learning how you give and receive love is such a critical thing to know about yourself, because then you get to use your gifts and talents, like Sierra was saying, and love your sphere of influence, right? So that's your family, your coworkers, your church family, your neighbors, the list goes on. But do the next best thing that you have in front of you to do. Just use your resources wisely.
Oh, amen.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have been a great encouragement, because I think you do this well. One of the reasons I ask you to do this is because we've been recipients of this kind of service, blessing, and we're in the same neighborhood. So I see you guys out walking around, and the neighborhood seems to know you. So you don't know this, but one of our neighbors from a few different streets over, I just met him for the first time yesterday. But as we started talking, I started talking about church and that sort of thing. He goes, oh yeah, he mentioned the fun house on Funston. I'm like, yeah, those are our people. And he's like, Valerie and Molly. I'm like, okay, yeah, Rico. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, you guys are been a huge blessing in that way. But we know you're just one example of many, and so I trust in blessing people. You've heard of others doing good things, which I've also been a recipient of. But Molly, you're collecting those things, and just tell us about some of the things that you've either seen or heard of from people in the church who are doing this kind of work.
Yeah, so we have been really encouraged just to be the recipient of that love, whether they're tangible things or less tangible things. So I'd love to just read a list of some of the things that we've seen, and I know there are a lot more out there. So people delivering baked goods, couples spending their Sundays together to worship and fellowship, virtual game nights, weekly phone calls, people getting together to walk, to process life and encourage one another and pray together, community groups meeting virtually, Bible studies and book studies, postcards, letters, and gifts sent in the mail like puzzles and books, people living alone being invited over for Sunday services and fellowship, members using creative ways to celebrate one another's achievements like work promotions, graduations, virtual races, and other things, numerous opportunities to meet neighbors while walking, sermons and other Grace Harbor resources being forwarded to non-members, people shopping for others, members making masks, generous and consistent giving, providing meals and other resources for care calendars, and members discussing the sermon together. And those are just a few. There are a lot more. And I think what's been great for us, and it's been fun to see within our house, is that we're all really different. And we're going to love people differently. So I would really encourage you to just think about how how God has made you. So what do you enjoy? What are your strengths? What are your talents? What are your skills? And then start from there. So if it seems really intimidating or big, just start with who you are and how God's made you. And then from there, think about how you can use your time and skills to bless other people. I think also during this time, things may seem really insignificant or too small. And I don't think anything's too small right now. Just carrying out those little things may be a huge blessing to someone. You just don't know. So just go through with it. And yeah, this of course makes me think of the verse in Hebrews 10:24 and 25. So let us consider how to stir one another up to love and good works. And it also talks about not neglecting to meet together. Well, we can't meet together right now. So that's cool because we're going to have to consider in different ways how we're going to love and stir that up. And then I think also just being able to share some of these things that we've seen and that other people have done is really important because we're not meeting together on Sunday mornings and evenings to have those 2-minute conversations where we hear about these great things happening. We don't have the time during the evening service to share encouragements to one another. Our community groups aren't meeting. We're not having these informal meals together where we're able to share. And in general, just the less in-person interactions that we have, the less time to hear about these things, the less time to be stirred up and encouraged. So it's important to share, and we would actually love for you guys to share things that you've seen or experienced so that we can continue to build one another up.
Yeah, that's a great challenge. So one challenge you might take away from this video right now is to consider how you can do this. And like you guys have said well, is it's not going to look the same way for everyone. What a blessing it is to live in the house with roommates as you guys do. I mean, it's like a explosion of encouragement. But to take that challenge and just consider my own gifts, who I know, who I'm around, who's in my neighborhood, and like how would I reach out or encourage someone else in the church. And I think another challenge I would make right now is that Molly's asking to hear about encouragement, and you're probably not going to say, well, here's what I've done, though I think that's a good thing to do in terms of being able to encourage others by letting them hear about your example. There's a way to do that in which it would be pride, and there's a way to do that humbly. So anyway, I would encourage you to share those things with Molly, or if you've been blessed by someone else, it's probably much easier to encourage the whole church by letting Molly know how someone else in the church has blessed you. Do you want to tell people why specifically you're asking for these good things? Yes.
So there will be a compilation of these good things from the Grace Harbor Church. So send them our way, and we'll do our best to compile those so that we can send it out to the church so we can all be encouraged by each other.
How will they get that? What are you going to do?
Video version.
All right. Well, we'll let people try and figure out what we're talking about. That's to come. Guys, thank you so much for the way that you've been serving the body so well, the way you have, and until we all can get back together again and experience the encouragement that comes from assembling ourselves together underneath the Word and praying together and singing together. Oh, it sounds so good. Until that happens, I think it's encouraging to think about how we can do that, whether it's through prayer, just testifying to the gospel with our community, serving others. All these things are just good ways to help one another persevere in Christ and proclaim the gospel to the world. So thanks for sharing. Awesome.